Hey, good morning, everyone. I started to type up a post here for Facebook for everyone. I was pretty much writing a book, and I says, I don't think anyone's gonna want to read this. So I just thought maybe I'd make a quick video, but I'm since I typed what I typed, I'm gonna kind of refer to that. So I'm gonna be looking over here. um, so as you know, I had the opportunity to meet Greg Chase on Thursday, and and watch him do his thing up close. Um, Having watched Greg play, and especially what he did with Badlands, um, see him do his thing at that level, uh, being that close to him was completely an honor. And there's another thing that I had left out on this. We did also meet Ryan McKay, his guitar player. That guy's no slouch either, man. This guy's really good. I got to watch him play for a little bit. He was using the Witchtronics OD 520 that we have, and he was plugged into a Fender. I believe it was oh gosh, I want to say Fender Twin, but I'm not 100% sure. It was a newer model. Um, but man, his bends and his vibrato are very, very cool. Different style than I play. So to watch what he did, that's something I wouldn't do, and at that level was it was pretty badass. It's pretty cool. I look forward to watching Ryan and maybe learning from him as well. But equally, a great musician right there with Greg, no doubt about it. Um, and then, as you guys know, I got the honor of having Jeff come over to the Krunch Palace here. um, and I got to tell you, I've watched Jeff, since probably '83. And although I never had actually met him, very well aware of him. And being a huge Armored Saint fan, when Armored Saint had Jeff in the band, and then unfortunately Dave Pritchard passed away, and then they got Phil back in the band. To see those two, I guess you could say, really save Armored Saint was huge because as a fan, you don't want to see somebody that you don't even know, two different guitar players in the band from some other town or even somewhere across the world, in fear they're going to lose that vibe or whatever. But to get these guys back was huge. And as we all know or should know, Symbol of Salvation was a huge turning point for Armored Saint, especially the two songs, Rain of Fire and Last Train Home, really, really put them on the map, and got them more worldwide recognition. Um, and then, as we know, that got put to a halt when John Bush joined Anthrax, and then I think around 2000 rejoined Armored Saint, and they've been going strong ever since. So it was pretty cool. But Jeff, he's got a really good ear, and he's a tone geek like myself. I think he's a little geekier. He's not here, and he's probably not going to watch this. Anyways, no, he knows tone, and he listens, and to watch him do his thing, the way he went about playing certain chords, like augmented, diminished stuff, just to try to hear every note ring out, the fullness, the roundness, the sustain. It was pretty cool. And then to just watch him play, when he did Rain of Fire, we're talking the original recording artist of a band that I love, of an album that I love, right there play it. Oh fuck, man! That was the highlight of my day. Was watching that because I learned the song and I've watched people play it on YouTube and listen to the song. But there's just little things, and when we went to like the pre-chorus in the song, and Jeff went up the neck and started playing this thing, I was like, "Oh wow!" It was, I don't know, it was badass. So after Jeff's, going through some speakers and checking stuff out, I had him plug into my rig. I was just curious, just to get his take on it and just want to hear him play through it. Now, my tone, I always look for like the Scorpions Blackout album. To me, that's the tone. I just love that tone, and that's what I look for in an amp, and that's what I usually try to put my settings to. That's just what my ear wants to hear. Um, and Jeff has, uh, great tone as well, but his ear wants to hear something else. So he plugs into it, and he starts playing some Scorpions, knowing that that's what I like. And it was so cool to see the different influences, because when he was playing Blackout, it was, if you can imagine Eddie Van Halen playing Blackout. And I don't mean with the squeals and stuff, like, because he didn't add nothing to the song, he just played it. But it had that EVH feel to it, and I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. Playing exact same notes, playing it the way the song was written, but just had this little different feel to it, and that was pretty cool. And that's where musicians, great guitar players, they have like that's what they call like their signature sound, or how you identify them. Just those things. Jeff, being an Eddie Van Halen guy, was playing My Hero, and to hear the blend of it. So I don't know, it was pretty cool. Um, but Jeff definitely has his own style and everything, and he has his album Wanderlust, and yeah, I'm gonna plug it. Wanderlust. It's a great album, because what I will say is, when I listen to Jeff's guitar work on Symbol of Salvation, it's good. It's great stuff. And then I listened to Wanderlust, which is what, 30 years between albums. You could really hear how he's grown as a musician. And I like the way he calls it, a guitar album or an instrumental album. Um, because myself, I don't really. I mean, the great guitar players like the Tony McAlpines, and guys like that. But I lose interest after a while. If there's no vocals, it seems to lose melody. And I mean, really, the only ones who can really do it is, like, in my opinion, are Steve Vai and Joe Satriani. But even then, after a little while, me personally, I want to hear something different. And Jeff and I, we had talked about songwriting, and different approaches, and how he um, is able to differentiate songwriting with Armored Saint, DC4, and then to do the Wanderlust thing. I was like, wow, that's three different bands that sound nothing alike. What is your approach, and how do you do that? So I got a little bit of insight on it, and it's pretty cool, man. He knows his shit. It's definitely great to be there and watch that go down. So but I will tell you, for some of you up and coming guitar players, there is a different level when you reach that level, when you become a touring artist, a regular recording artist. Um, it's like going from college ball to pro ball. It really is. I never got to play the big time, and that's okay. But you're in the same room of guys who have been doing this for years, and at that level, and it shows. It shows even when they play just the simplest of rhythms, the timing, the tightness, the I don't know how you want to say it. It's a different level. It's, you can have a high school kid hit a ball 300 feet, and have Barry Bonds hit a ball 300 feet. Well, we know he hits a lot further than that, but just how there's a different pop off the bat. There's just a different velocity. There's just something different in their swing. It's called being a pro. And 2 days in a row, I got to be around three top-notch musicians, and I learned a lot playing with Gary. Gary's the ultimate timekeeper on drums, and I really learned the importance of that. And then being around these guys, I could see why that's so important. So, Gary, if you're watching, thank you for opening my eyes to some things that I might not have ever learned, or um, as people, we get a certain I don't want to say like a speed, or a certain rhythm. The way we walk, the way we talk. We do things at a certain speed. We usually get in our car. We usually drive a certain speed. We pick up our instrument. We play a certain speed. When you've been in a band with a group of guys, I think you can by default, if you're not careful, all develop that same pace. Now, there's a difference between being tight and playing the same pace, especially if you got several songs in the same key, because you're playing at that same pace for, 5 or 6 songs. It could sound like one big long song. You got to remember, when you're performing for people, you're performing for people who've never heard you play, who don't know you. There's no biased opinion there. It's not like, oh, hey, this is my buddy, and so you're a little more involved. The people in the audience, in the crowd, they're judging you. So when you break up the tempos of songs, um, you're adding more dynamics to your set list. So if you're doing a 45-minute set, you can't make it sound like a 145-minute song. It's real important to have tempo changes. Very, very important. And I learned that. Um, so I want to try to pass that down, and it's just even validated by being around these guys. So it's really, really important. And another thing that I would say, that I learned about tone, and that I see these guys do as well. So it's very validating for me to be able to have these conversations with these guys and discuss certain aspects of tone. But I think one thing that I was fortunate to learn early on was that when you're a band, you're a big EQ, and you really got to think about the importance of that. And that's why you, as drummers, your floor tom doesn't sound like your high tom. At least it shouldn't. And I remember when we went in the recording studio the first time, the guy had our drummer tune the first tom up higher. He says, well, because when you're doing a drum fill and you've got all this going on with the band and the distortion and everything, it might sound like you're playing the same drum. You really want to break that up. So you got to be open to things like that. And then as guitar players, we play in our bedrooms or by ourselves, and we get our sound and our tone adjusted a certain way. But then we get with our band, and you may have to change something because we have a bass player for a reason. Those are his frequencies, and you don't want to step on those. You don't want to mush those. You have to have a certain spot in the mix, and especially if you're a two guitar band, you're both at home working on your tone, and maybe you come to practice and your tones sound very similar. You don't want that, but you have to be okay to make changes, and you got to let go of that ego and that stubbornness, and you got to think as a group, as a team effort. And it can be very hard because you're like, man, I've been working so hard on my sound, and then I get with the band, I got to change everything. I learned that early on, and I learned that by playing different clubs, especially like you do sound check, there's nobody in the room. So it's like playing in an empty hall, and then it's like going to a room that's got padding on the walls and carpet on the floor because the people, the bodies, their clothing soaks up the sound, and it's gonna change. So you may have to change your settings gig per gig. Now we all have like our little starting point, and that's fine. That's a good reference, but you got to be open to changing things around. And when I got with Greg, he was like, "Oh, I've been playing SVT. I have 8/10s. That's my sound. That's what I do." He played into the 212, and because he was open and not stubborn, he loved the 212, which it is a kick-ass little cabinet. But he wasn't like, oh, well, okay, yeah, it sounds good, but I'm gonna go back to my stuff. Same thing when Jeff got over. He has his tone. He knows what he likes. He likes the Eminence Governor speakers. He's been using those for years. So I made sure he was set up with those. But then I know he runs two cabinets. So I wanted to try to pair him up with something. Why get two cabinets with the exact same frequencies, if you would say. So we started mixing and matching, and we found the 65s worked where he really liked it. And so it's pretty cool to be able to get my knowledge and blend in with these guys and see how that all comes together. So Yeah, that's it. I know this video is kind of long, but it was better than trying to type all this out. You guys have a good weekend. Krunch signing off. Okay.